The morning sun seeped through the blinds of Danielle Carter's apartment, casting long golden streaks across the wooden floor. The scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air as she adjusted the blazer on her shoulders, giving herself one last glance in the hallway mirror. Danielle, 32, was the embodiment of resilience. Tall, confident, with deep brown skin that glowed under the soft morning light. Her coiled black hair was pinned into an elegant bun, accentuating her sharp cheekbones and expressive, dark eyes. She had always believed in hard work, perseverance, and the idea that talent would eventually outshine prejudice. She straightened the papers in her leather portfolio, taking a deep breath. Today was supposed to be her big break, the day she finally claimed what she had worked so tirelessly for. Danielle had spent the last 8 years climbing the corporate ladder in Mason and Elridge Consulting, a prestigious business firm known for its high-profile clientele. She had started as an intern, working late nights, volunteering for projects no one else wanted, and proving herself time and time again. Her colleagues respected her, but there was an unspoken boundary, a glass ceiling she could feel but never quite see. While her peers, most of whom were white men, effortlessly moved up the ranks, she remained in the same mid-level management position, always not quite ready for a promotion. It wasn't for a lack of qualifications. Danielle had an MBA from one of the top universities in the country, a proven track record of success, and glowing recommendations from clients. Yet, every time a leadership role opened, she was overlooked. This time, things were supposed to be different. The senior project manager role had been vacant for months, and she had put together an impressive presentation outlining her vision for the department. She had the experience. She had the results. She had earned this. The Mason and Elridge office was a towering glass structure in the heart of the city, a symbol of power and prestige. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with the energy of people in tailored suits, moving briskly from meeting to meeting. But beneath the professional veneer, there were unspoken rules. Danielle had seen it all. The exclusive after-work gatherings where decisions were made behind closed doors, the knowing glances exchanged when someone like her applied for leadership roles, the way her suggestions were often overlooked until repeated by someone else. Despite it all, she had kept her head high, believing that hard work would triumph over bias. Danielle took a deep breath before stepping into the conference room for her interview. Her direct supervisor, Mark Reynolds, a middle-aged white man with salt and pepper hair, offered her a thin smile. Beside him sat Claire Patterson, the company's HR director, flipping through Danielle's resume with a neutral expression. She delivered her pitch flawlessly, answering every question with confidence, backing up her claims with years of experience and quantifiable results. When she finished, Mark nodded. "That was thorough, Danielle," he said. "But we'll need some time to make a final decision." She had been here before. This exact moment, these exact words. Something in his tone made her stomach sink. 3 days had passed since the interview, and Danielle sat at her desk, refreshing her email inbox more times than she cared to admit. Then, at exactly 4:37 p.m., the notification popped up. Subject: Senior Project Manager Role, Final Decision. Danielle exhaled sharply, clicking the email. "Dear Danielle, we appreciate the time and effort you put into your application and interview. After careful consideration, we have decided to go with another candidate who aligns more closely with our vision for this role. We truly value your contributions to Mason and Elridge and look forward to your continued success here. Best, Mark Reynolds." Danielle's heart dropped. She blinked, rereading the email as if the words might change. Aligns more closely with our vision. What did that even mean? Her breath grew shallow as frustration burned in her chest. She had given that company 8 years of dedication. She had led multi-million-dollar projects, trained employees who were now managers, and yet, she wasn't aligned enough for leadership? Something wasn't right. She clicked on the company's internal announcements page, scrolling quickly until she found the update. Mason and Elridge is pleased to announce our new senior project manager, Michael Carter. Danielle's stomach twisted. Michael Carter, a man she had trained, a man who had less experience than her, fewer accomplishments, and had even come to her for help just months ago. A white man. Her fingers clenched around the edges of her desk as she stared at the screen. A flurry of emotions crashed into her. Anger, humiliation, betrayal. She had worked twice as hard, had more experience, and had proven herself beyond a doubt. Yet, here she was, once again, overlooked. Not because of her talent, but because of something she had no control over. Her phone vibrated, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. It was Lena, her best friend and former coworker. "Hey girl, I just saw the company's announcement. Are you okay?" Danielle let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, you mean the announcement that my hard work got me nowhere? That one." Lena sighed. "I had a feeling this would happen. You should have gotten that job." Danielle leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. "I don't even know what to say. I should have seen it coming, but it still hurts. Are you really going to just let this slide?" Lena asked, her voice edged with frustration. Danielle hesitated. She had been here before, faced with an injustice that she had swallowed down, hoping that if she just worked harder, things would change. But now? Now, she was tired. That night, Danielle sat on her couch, laptop open, searching. She typed, "Workplace discrimination legal cases. Racial bias in hiring. Employment discrimination lawsuit success stories," as she scrolled through pages of stories from women like her, who had fought back. A thought took root in her mind. For years, she had believed in the system, in fairness, in working hard and proving herself. But maybe the real problem wasn't her lack of qualifications. Maybe the system was never built for someone like her to succeed. Her eyes landed on a name. Jordan Ellis, civil rights attorney. A high-profile lawyer known for taking on racial discrimination cases in corporate America. Danielle hesitated for a moment, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then, with a deep breath, she started typing. Danielle sat across from Jordan Ellis, the civil rights attorney, in his sleek downtown office. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the neatly stacked legal briefs on his desk. He was a sharp-dressed black man in his 40s, his eyes scanning her resume and emails with the practiced intensity of someone who had seen this scenario far too many times. He leaned back in his chair. "Let me get this straight. You have 8 years at this company, a history of leadership and measurable success, yet they passed you over for a less experienced candidate?" Danielle nodded, gripping her coffee cup tightly. "And it's not the first time." Jordan exhaled, tapping a pen against the desk. "Unfortunately, this is a pattern I've seen over and over again. But the good news? You have a strong case." Danielle swallowed hard. "A lawsuit?" Jordan nodded. "Mason and Elridge has a history of these subjective hiring decisions. We can request internal records, look for patterns of bias, and, if they don't settle, take this to court." Danielle's stomach twisted. She had spent years building her reputation in that company. Filing a lawsuit would mean war. "What if they retaliate?" she asked. Jordan gave her a knowing look. "Then we'll make sure they pay for that too." Danielle met Lena at their favorite coffee shop later that evening. The smell of roasted beans and cinnamon filled the air, but her nerves made it impossible to enjoy. "So, let me get this straight," Lena said, stirring her latte. "You're really suing them?" Danielle nodded. "I'm done waiting for things to change. If I stay silent, they'll keep doing this. To me, to other black women, to anyone who doesn't fit their mold." Lena grinned. "About damn time. You're going to make them regret this." But not everyone shared Lena's enthusiasm. The next day, Danielle confided in James, a black senior analyst in the company, hoping for advice. James rubbed his temple. "I get it, Danielle. Trust me, I do. But you have to think long-term. A lawsuit like this? It could make it harder for you to find another job." Danielle frowned. "So, what? I'm just supposed to let them keep doing this?" James hesitated. "I'm saying be careful. Companies don't like troublemakers. And whether we like it or not, we don't get the same leeway others do." His words sat heavy in her chest. She had always known the risks, but was she willing to accept this treatment just to make her career easier later? No. She had already sacrificed too much. Internal struggles, doubt, fear, and determination. The official lawsuit filing came a week later. The headline spread across business circles. Former employee sues Mason and Elridge for racial discrimination in hiring practices. Danielle scrolled through the comments under the article. Some people supported her, others didn't. Companies should hire based on merit, not race. Maybe she just wasn't good enough. I worked with Danielle. She was more than qualified. This is long overdue. She's just playing the race card. The word stung. But the worst came from inside the company. She received an email from an old colleague, anonymous. But the message was clear. You really think you're going to win this? Good luck finding a new job after this is over. Her hands trembled as she closed her laptop. Fear gnawed at her. But beneath it was something else. Rage. She had spent years playing by the rules. Now, she was done playing. Foreshadowing the climax. A week before the first court hearing, Jordan called her. We just got a tip, he said. You're going to want to see this. Danielle met him at his office, where he handed her a folder filled with internal emails from Mason and Elridge. She skimmed through them, her breath catching. There it was. Proof. An email from Mark Reynolds to another executive. We need someone who fits our company image better. Danielle is great, but let's be real. She's not exactly leadership material. Danielle's hands clenched around the papers. Leadership material. A lifetime of being told to work twice as hard. To be patient. To wait for her turn. This was why she was always waiting. She looked up at Jordan. They're going to regret this. The courtroom was packed. Reporters sat in the back, their pens poised over notepads, while Mason and Elridge's legal team sat rigidly in their tailored suits. Across the aisle, Danielle sat beside Jordan, her heart pounding as the judge called the session to order. Mark Reynolds, the man who had denied her the promotion, sat just feet away, avoiding her gaze. Jordan stood, buttoning his jacket with effortless confidence. Your Honor, this is not just about one woman being denied a promotion. This is about a pattern, a deliberate effort to keep Black employees from reaching leadership roles. He walked to the center of the courtroom, locking eyes with the jury. The defense will argue that this was a simple hiring decision, that Danielle Carter just wasn't the right fit. He paused, then held up the printed emails. But these emails tell a different story. A story of bias, of discrimination hidden under corporate language. And today, we will prove that Mason and Elridge didn't just overlook my client. They systematically ensured that she would never rise above a certain level. Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Danielle clenched her fists. It was time to expose the truth. Mark Reynolds took the stand, his expression carefully composed. The company's lawyer led him through a scripted defense. We simply hired the most qualified candidate, Mark said smoothly. This had nothing to do with race. Jordan stood, stepping forward. Mr. Reynolds, let's talk about qualifications. Can you confirm how long Michael Carter, your new senior project manager, has been with the company? Mark hesitated. A little over 3 years. 3 years. Jordan nodded. And can you confirm how long my client, Danielle Carter, has been with the company? Mark cleared his throat. 8 years. And in those 8 years, how many leadership roles was she promoted to? Silence. Let me help you, Jordan continued. 0. The jury's eyes sharpened. Jordan walked over to the evidence table, picking up a document. Mr. Reynolds, let's talk about this email you sent regarding Danielle's promotion. Mark shifted uncomfortably. I don't recall writing that. Jordan handed the printed email to the judge and jury. This is your email, correct? We need someone who fits our company image better. Danielle is great, but let's be real. She's not exactly leadership material. Mark's face paled. The jury whispered among themselves. Danielle watched as Mark struggled for a response, knowing the truth was finally out in the open. Just when it seemed like Mark had nowhere to hide, Jordan glanced at his notes and smirked. Your Honor, we have one final piece of evidence. A whistleblower had come forward, a former HR employee from Mason and Elridge. A woman in her 50s, wearing a modest navy suit, approached the stand. My name is Patricia Holloway. I worked in HR at Mason and Elridge for 15 years, and I'm here to tell the truth. The courtroom fell silent. I saw firsthand how Black employees were passed over for promotions. It wasn't always written down, but we were encouraged to favor candidates who fit the company culture. When Danielle applied for the senior project manager role, there was a discussion about how promoting a Black woman might make some of our older clients uncomfortable. Danielle's stomach turned. Patricia's voice grew stronger. I stayed silent for years. But when I saw Danielle's lawsuit, I knew I had to come forward. Because what happened to her? It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. The room erupted. Reporters scribbled furiously. Mark's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. Danielle could hardly breathe. She had spent years thinking she just needed to work harder. But the truth? The game had been rigged against her all along. And now, the world knew. Mark Reynolds was forced to step down. Mason and Elridge scrambled to settle the case, offering Danielle a large financial settlement and a formal public apology. But more importantly, they were being investigated for discriminatory hiring practices. Danielle sat in Jordan's office, staring at the settlement agreement in front of her. "So, what now?" Jordan asked. Danielle exhaled, a slow smile spreading across her lips. "Now," she said, "I build something of my own. Healing Actions, taking the next step." 2 months later, Danielle stood in front of a crowd of eager faces at a networking event for Black professionals. She had been invited as the keynote speaker. She adjusted the microphone, taking a deep breath before she spoke. "For years, I believed that if I worked hard enough, if I stayed patient, if I kept my head down, I would eventually be rewarded." She paused, scanning the room. "But what I learned, what so many of us already know, is that hard work alone isn't enough when the system is designed to keep us out." A few people nodded, murmuring in agreement. "I sued Mason and Elridge because I refused to let my story end in silence. And today, I stand here not as someone who was overlooked, but as someone who fought back and won." Applause filled the room. Lena sat in the front row, grinning, and even James, the cautious skeptic, was there, giving her a small nod of respect. Danielle had reclaimed her power. Mason and Elridge's reputation had crumbled. Their hiring practices were under federal review, and companies across the industry were forced to examine their own biases. But for Danielle, the biggest victory wasn't the lawsuit. It was what she did next. She had taken part of her settlement money and launched her own consulting firm, specializing in diversity and leadership training. She had spent years waiting for someone else to give her a seat at the table. Now, she was building her own table. And this time, she was making sure there were plenty of seats for others like her. One evening, she sat on her balcony, overlooking the city skyline. Her phone buzzed, an email from a young Black woman she had mentored years ago. "Danielle, I just got my first leadership role. Thank you for believing in me." Danielle smiled, closing her laptop. She had once been told she wasn't leadership material. Now, she was leading the way. As she watched the sun dip below the horizon, she felt something she hadn't in a long time: peace. Her journey wasn't over. But for the first time in her life, she was exactly where she was meant to be. And she wasn't waiting anymore. Danielle's story is a reminder that speaking up can create real change. If you've ever faced injustice, know this: your voice matters. What do you think about Danielle's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, subscribe and share. Because change starts with us.